Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have everyone here. It is Pâte Choux Day. Yay. Oh my gosh, Pâte Choux is one of my very favorite things to make. It is one of those things that once you've done it, you'll see how easy it is. And that's what I'm hoping to show you today, how easy this is. You don't have to have any special equipment. The ingredients are probably things, even given our current state of situation, it's probably things that you have at home. And so that's the beauty. And I talk about this a lot in class. It's always so fun. I think pastry is just amazing. How you take the most basic ingredients, so flour, sugar, eggs, and then butter, of course, butter. And then you're able to make so many different things out of it. It's just the way that it's treated and that you're working with it. So this is no different. So this is one of those great recipes that is just so easy. It's classic, and there's so many things that you can make with it. So I came in a little bit earlier today and already have some eclairs baked up. So we have some eclairs made. We have some cream puffs made, and these are the ones that I'll fill later as we get going. And after I show you the recipe and go through it, then I'll show you how to fill them and the things that we're going to use for that. And then this is my absolute favorite. This is the reason to make Pâte Choux. So they're called Gougeres. These are little teeny tiny, pop in your mouth, just morsels of goodness. So these actually have a little bit of Parmesan cheese in them. It has a little tiny bit of additional salt and then pepper. If you have fresh herbs at home, so I meant to bring in some rosemary to add to mine. Today I don't have it here. I totally forgot to bring it in. So instead, just some salt and pepper is really all you need in them. And they're so good. They're just delicious. And this bowl earlier, I hate to say, was pretty full, and I've eaten quite a few, and I shared one with Randy. So I said, "Do you want to taste a gougere?" And he was like, "Okay, I'll try one," and that's all I gave him. So hopefully after we're done today, I'll have some additional dough. So I'll be able to share a few more with you later. All right. So welcome. Glad to have everyone here. Pâte Choux. It's that classic thing. All we're going to need is some milk, some water, and some butter. And that's what we're going to start with, along with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And then we're going to heat that until the butter's melted, and then it comes to a boil. Then from there, we're going to add our flour, and then we're going to let it cool off a little bit, and then we're going to add our eggs. So it's not a complicated thing. It's one of those recipes, though, that if you see all the steps involved with it, it looks a little intimidating. But I'm going to show you how easy this is. So glad to have everyone along. Let's go ahead and I'm going to turn this down, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we go. Let's see, is that enough? There we go. All right, looks good. So here I have a pot, and then what I'm going to add to it is my butter. So this is 1 stick of butter, so 4 ounces of butter. And then in my cup measure, I have 4 ounces of milk and 4 ounces of water. And some recipes use all water, some recipes use all milk. I like it where it's half and half, because that way you get the richness of the milk. But what ends up happening, I think, when it's all milk is that it ends up being just a little bit too much. Like it's a little heavy. And so I prefer it to be half water, half milk. Then I have a teaspoon of salt that's gonna go in here and a tablespoon of sugar. Even if I'm making it where it's like totally going to be the, you know, the savory version, so I'm not even gonna make a sweet version out of it, then I still go ahead and do this where it is where it has the sugar in there. All right, let's see. I'm gonna turn this on medium heat, so about 280 on your regular, like a regular stove. This would just be medium. And what I want to do is heat it kind of gently, because I don't want the milk and the water to boil before the point that the butter is starting to melt. I want the butter to melt in here very easily. So I'm just gonna kind of help it around, just kind of move it around, help the butter melt a little bit easier in here. I could have very easily helped the butter melt super easy in here by chopping the butter into tablespoon sizes or, smaller pieces. That would have made it where it melts a lot faster and a lot easier in here. I didn't do that. It was straight from the stick from the wrapper. So, that's the way I cook at home, right? All right, so we're just gonna heat this until the butter's melted, and then we're gonna bring it to a boil. Then from there, I want to have my flour ready to go. So this is 155 grams of flour, and this is just standard all-purpose. So this is the flour that you have at home, so standard flour that you can have. By the way, while we're waiting for this to heat and butter to melt, let me let you know we do have flour here. We have sugar, we have yeast, we have ingredients that you may need. So our hours are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's just 10 to noon each day. We may be looking at that next week and kind of modifying it a little bit, but we've kind of seen that people are able to fit into that time frame and be able to come see us. So if you want anything, whether it's flour or yeast or whether it's cupcake liners, just the easiest way is to go ahead and email us. So email us at makeitsweet.com. We'll run around and gather everything and then have it ready for you. My butter is all melted in here. I'm just going to turn it up just a little bit higher to get it to boil. So no one look at it, because like if you look at it, it's not going to boil. So turn your head away, and so someone will have to watch it to know if it's boiling. But there we go. So it's starting to come to a nice rolling boil. That's what I'm looking for. And then as soon as that happens, then what you're gonna do, you're just gonna turn off the heat. I'm on an induction stove, so I can go ahead and just turn this off and there's no more transfer of heat. But Randy's gonna be really good and move this out of the way for me. There we go. So that now I can just have this totally off the heat. I'm gonna add all my flour all at once. And then I like to use a wooden spoon for this. And then mix it up. It's gonna look lumpy. That's exactly what it's supposed to look like right now. And what I'm looking for, I'm gonna kind of move a little bit of it away. See how it's stuck just a little bit on the bottom of the pan. That's called a skin. And that lets me know that I have the right amount of flour and liquid, because that's what's so important with pâte à choux, is to have that balance between the liquid and the flour and then the eggs that we're going to be adding in. We'll be able to add more eggs if we have driven off enough of the liquid. And so that's why I'm looking for that little skin that's in there. So I like to use a pan like this, like a stainless pan, or using an aluminum pan like this rather than using a non-stick, because in a non-stick, you're not gonna see that skin. So it's gonna be harder to tell whether you actually have the correct consistency for it. So this is the time to pull out the other pans. Here we go, I'll turn this around the other way. All right, I'm just taking this out. I'm putting it into a bowl. And now the only other thing that we're going to be adding in is going to be eggs. And so I can't add my eggs yet, because if I add them right now, I'm gonna have scrambled eggs in here. So I want to wait just a little bit and then be able to add my eggs. So I'm just gonna, every once in a while, just kind of stir this around. That'll help it evaporate. It'll help it cool off a little bit quicker, and be able to work with it. So there are two schools of thought with pâte à choux. There's probably more than that, but when I was going to culinary school, and I tell this story a lot when during class, when I was going to culinary school, the theory was you had to make pâte à choux by hand, and that's what we're going to do today. That you had to do it by hand, no matter what, and that you did not use a mixer for it. Well, then we were getting ready to start doing a pâte à choux class, and this is probably, Magda, help me, it's probably like eight years ago that we first started doing the pâte à choux class, and so we were getting ready to practice recipes for it, and I said, all right, let's make some. And Magda pulled out a mixer, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What did they teach you at that school? The same one that I went to. What did they teach you at the school that you went to? And so she said, we did it in a mixer. I'm certain we did it in a mixer. And so she made some in a mixer, and they were good. I made some by hand, and they were good. And so it was fine. But in class for years and years, so probably the entire time that we were still at the old store, and then even once we moved here to the new location, I made everyone do it by hand. And people in class were always so happy that there were like 5 or 6 people at the table working with them, because it's a lot of work, because we don't just do a single recipe in class, we multiply it by 4. And so it's 16 eggs that you have to work into this, and 1.5 pounds of flour that you have to work into it. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of elbow grease when you're multiplying the recipe. So then I ended up getting a cookbook of a friend of mine. His name is Jackie Pfeiffer. He is the founder of the French Pastry School in Chicago. Amazing, amazing pastry chef, and I have nothing but respect for him. Well, I got his cookbook, and lo and behold, when I'm reading his recipe for pâte à choux, he used a mixer. And the funny part is that I assisted a class with him a little bit before, and it was quite a while before the book came out, and he was fairly adamant. Maybe it was because there weren't a lot of mixers available or whatever where we were teaching, but he was pretty adamant that you could do this by hand, and that's a good way to do it. Well, he had a mixer like right front and center in the picture. He had the paddle from the mixer and showing how to do it. And I was like, okay, well, if Jackie Pfeiffer does it that way, then I can be changed too. So it's a lesson of teaching old dogs new tricks kind of thing. And so we changed our class, and we ended up making it where we make it in a mixer. But ultimately, if you don't have a KitchenAid style mixer, can you still make cream puffs and eclairs and Gougeres? Yes, and it has been done that way for years and years. That's how my grandmother did it. That's how my mom did it. And it can still be done that way. So you do not have to have a mixer. Does it make it a little bit easier? Yes, but if you're only making a single recipe like this, it goes fairly quickly. And so it's not so easy to do, or not so hard to do, to do this. I think it's actually easier, especially on a small amount like this, to do it by hand, because you can judge the consistency. And that's what I'm going to be talking about when we start adding eggs, is what we're going for is a consistency in this dough. And especially if you are multiplying this recipe, then that's even more important, because sometimes, you know, as you get to having 16 eggs for a 4 times recipe, sometimes what ends up happening is that the difference between the sizes of eggs really makes a huge difference. And even things like temperature, humidity, you know, so many other factors play into it. So we've had it in class where it's gone from anywhere from people only needing to add 13 eggs up to needing to add 17 eggs. And so it's kind of varied. And 4 eggs is a huge difference in a recipe like this. So it's a consistency that we're going for this. Notice what I keep doing. I'm just kind of stirring this around a little bit at a time and just letting it set to cool off. I don't want to put my eggs in too quickly, because I want the volume. That's what gives the puff, the rise, the everything to the cream puff. And if I put my eggs in and they cook in here before they're cooking in the oven, then what's going to end up happening, I'm not going to get that rise. I'm not going to get the look and the feel and the texture that I'm going for with it. All right, so I'm going to let this cool just a little bit. If you wanted to make it to this point and then walk away for about 10 minutes or half an hour, that would absolutely be fine. You could then just come back later, be able to add your eggs, and then ready to go. I'm not a big fan of saying, oh, let's put this in the fridge for a few more minutes, because what ends up happening, it's not going to cool evenly. Just the outside is going to cool, the inside's going to stay really hot, and it's just not going to work the same. So I would rather just walk away for a few minutes, or just like this, you know, just keep stirring it. It only takes about 5 minutes or so for it to cool off enough that we can add our eggs. So the temperature that I'm looking for is where if I stick my finger in there, then it would be the temperature that you would say, oh, that's warm, but it would not be hot enough that you'd be like, oh, that's warm, like really hot. And so that's the test for it. So gloved hands if you want, or for us, this is just Randy and I that are going to eat them. So my finger's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. My immaculately clean finger is fine in here. There we go. I'm right there. So it's not hot. I can notice I can leave my finger in there. I'm not moving it around. It's not hot, and it's temperature that I can start adding my eggs. All right. Let me just wipe off my finger here and start adding. So, and I say start adding because what I want to do, I'm going to be adding them one at a time. If you want to break them and put them into like a cup measure like this, or something where you can just add one at a time, that works. Or if you want to just break them individually, that works too. So I'm just going to add one and then stir. So I always like this part. I think it kind of sloshes, is the term that I use. What you're looking for is for all of your egg to be incorporated before you add your next one. So I like to use a wooden spoon for this. That's always my favorite tool in the kitchen. I actually even buy wooden spoons when I'm on vacation. Just buy some wooden spoons from different places, and that way I keep them on the side of my stove. And when I pull them out, then it's like, oh, that's the one from wherever. I have one from Dot Clerk from Australia. I have some from Guatemala, and other travels. So it's always a fun thing to be able to do that. So notice the dough here. I don't see the egg in here separate from the dough at all. So now I know it's time to add my next one. Dot Clerk is not from Australia. She is from South Africa. That was totally wrong. All right. So here we go. It's doing that sloshing thing. And so you can imagine, like, if you're doing a 4 times batch of this, it's big, plus it's lots of eggs. And what we do when we have multiplied the recipe is that we start with several of the eggs. So we usually start with 4 and then add 3 and then 2, and then it goes to 1, 1, 1, 1 till we get to the right consistency. All right, almost there. I have to switch arms. All right, so back to dough. I don't see the egg in here anymore. And now it's time for egg number 3. And I like to leave them whole like this when I'm adding them, because that way I can just kind of get a feel for how many eggs I have added. And rather than if I had taken this and like scrambled all of these, it's a little bit harder to know like where you are with how many eggs. And granted, it comes down to a consistency, but I guess it's just the way I've always done it. All right, so see this part where it just kind of separates and it's like sloshing together? It just takes a little bit of elbow grease. Just keep working it, keep working it. There we go. Starting to come together. All right. So you can see why when we were making people do it by hand, I did not hear from very many people after class that they went home and made a bunch of these. Where now that we do it in the mixer, people do, let us know, oh my gosh, I made, Gougeres for Thanksgiving, or, I've made cream puffs for a party. And, but by hand, there's a little bit of work that goes into it. So this is my little bit of upper body workout right now. All right, on a single recipe, I've never really had it be much different than 4 eggs. Every once in a while, you might be like, oh, was that too much or not enough? With a single recipe, it's almost always exactly 4 eggs. And these are large eggs. So it's not the extra large, it's not the jumbos. These are large eggs are what we get. So if you're using jumbos or extra large eggs, you may have to look at it and kind of decide whether you need to add that 4th egg or not. All right, so consistency is what we're going for. And so I'm gonna hold my spatula up and my wooden spoon, and what I'm looking for is for it to drop off like that. And I want this, the little V that's created, to be fairly smooth. And so this is a nice consistency and works well. So let me just give it another little stir. I'll show you that drop off one more time. There we go, let it drop. And see how it's fairly smooth. That's what we're looking for. If I had, maybe there, it's dropping again. Perfect, that's what we're looking for, is that continual kind of drop with it, and then that nice smooth edge to it. So dough is done and ready to go. The nice thing about pâte à choux dough is that this is so versatile. If you wanted to go ahead and use it immediately right now, like what we're gonna do, you can do that. If you wanted to put this in the fridge and not use it till later today or tomorrow or the next day or the next 3 days, that would be absolutely fine. And it makes so many different things. And you can freeze it too. So the way that I like to freeze it, if I am gonna freeze it, is to go ahead and pipe it into whatever shape you're gonna be using, and then from there be able to freeze it. Put it into the freezer, let it firm up, and then by the time that it's firm, then you can put it into a zip top bag and be able to then keep it in the freezer. Only about a month in the freezer for this, not a really long time with that. All right, let me move that to the back here. I'm gonna get a bag and scissors and tips, and I wanna talk about shapes and what we're gonna do with this. So I'm gonna show you how to pipe an eclair and then cream puffs, and then we'll mix in some Parmesan cheese and some goodness, and we'll make gougere with all the rest of it. So these are just the disposable piping bags. I like to use the 18-inch ones for this. So it just makes it easier. Whenever you're using like the bigger tips like this, it just makes it easier, because if you're using a 12-inch bag, you end up cutting off so much of it to be able to work with. So the tip that we're going to use for the eclairs is going to be a 1A. So this is a large round tip, and I'm just going to cut about an inch or so off of the end of the bag. Open up the bag, and I still want to make that collar. It just makes filling the bag so much easier. So turn inside out about the top 4 inches or so of the bag. And then I'm gonna put the tip in and make sure that it's secured in there. So just kind of push it all the way in. And the round tip is the one that we're gonna use for the eclairs. You could, if you don't have any tips at home, or if, let's say you don't even have any bags at home, you could use like a gallon zip top bag. That would work, and just snip the side of it off. That would be fine. Just snip off a little round hole. All right, so I'm just putting a little bit of the dough in here and work it all the way down in. And just like regular, you're going to hold the bag where it's between your thumb and your first finger, and then give it a little twist. That's gonna make that this have a lot more pressure in it. It's gonna make squeezing much, much easier. So before I get going with this, my oven here is a convection oven, and convection ovens blow air around. And because these end up being light and airy, if I don't do something to get my paper to stay in place, that has the chance that the paper might come up, the cream puffs and eclairs would fly around in the oven. It would be craziness. So I'm just securing the paper onto my pan. You do not have to do that if you are using a regular conventional oven at home. All right, so what I wanna do, I wanna angle the back of the bag towards my shoulder. And I'm going to have my tip almost touching, but not quite. And I wanna squeeze, let it really build up before I even start moving. And then when I move, I'm just moving very slowly, and then get it to about 4 inches long, which I think is a good size for an eclair. And then stop, and then I went back on itself. So again, almost touching, but not quite. I wanna squeeze, let it really build up. And then just try to keep the pressure the same, and then stop and back on itself. So if you don't let it build up, look what you end up with. You know, it's just like a little skinny line, not a good eclair. If you go like this and you're moving all over the place, you know, you end up with kind of a zigzag. So you want to just move nice and slowly. I have a fix for these. we call it in class the magic eraser. So when you are doing this, and let's say you're making pâte choux and you want to make cream puffs and eclairs, if you're making both of them, or Gougeres or whatever, you need to dedicate each pan to each item, because these are going to take longer to bake than the cream puffs, and they're going to definitely take longer than the Gougere. So you want to dedicate each pan to each size, each particular item that you're making. So I'm just going to make two eclairs because I want more Gougere in the end. So there we go. All right, my extra, I'm just going to go ahead and just squeeze this back in. All right, and then cream puffs. So I'm gonna use an 8B. This is a star tip, and you could use pretty much any kind of star tip for this. I like to have the edges. You don't have to though. If you have a round tip, or if you don't have a tip, you can just use a plain round for it. But I like to have the little edges on there. Here we go. I'm gonna cut off the end of the bag. And then once you put the tip in, what you're gonna look for is to make sure, see, and I didn't cut it far enough. You want to make sure that the bag is not covering up any of the cut part on the tip, because otherwise it's gonna mess up the design as it's coming out. There we go. All right, let me fill it with some dough here. Messy. All right. So there are entire places in like Paris and New Orleans that all they do is eclairs, and they're beautiful, and things that you can see. Just do a Google search and see all the different kinds of fillings and decorations on the top and things that you can make with it to get inspiration from them. There we go. All right, little bits right on my pan. This one, instead of angling the back of the bag, this one is straight up and down. And so this time I want to be almost an inch away from the pan. I'm just gonna squeeze and then stop and turn. And these end up being like a little bit like a silver dollar size. And so it's a little bit larger than what you might think. So let me pipe a few more. I'm about an inch away, squeeze, let it build up, and then stop and do that turn. Squeeze, let it build up, stop, and do that turn. If I don't stop squeezing while I am still piping, so let's say I'm squeezing and I'm still squeezing and still squeezing, see, it does this whole thing, and that's just a mess. All right, so that's definitely magic eraser time for that one. The other thing that ends up happening is that if you're too close, then you end up with really flat ones. So it's really flat and not, you can probably see the difference between this one and this one, where there's no volume to it. So I need to be able to have the height to it in order to get that additional puff to it. All right, couple more. So straight up and down, about an inch away, squeeze, let it build up, stop, and then turn. And then what you want to have is a little thing of water, and that way, if you have any peaks that are here, just take your finger and tap them down. This one was actually the one that I wanted to get rid of, so I'm gonna get rid of this guy. There we go. So the reason you want to tap those down before they go into the oven is that in the oven it's just going to brown too much, and so you're going to have a little really browned part, and then the rest of it's not going to be finished yet. So you always want to tap those down. Same thing on the eclairs. When you come back on itself, if it ends up with a big peak, then you would want to do the same thing and tap it down. So we're going to put those to the side, put them in the oven in just a minute. All right, so now it's time for Gougeres, my favorite. So Magda's going to be chiming in probably and saying her favorite is to take this dough and to put some vanilla bean paste with it and then fry it. So it makes it so that it's kind of like churros, and it's delicious. So then when it comes out of the oil, what you do is you add some cinnamon and sugar. You toss it in there, and it is really, really good. And when we make those in class, Magda's always the one. She hates to fry them, but she's always the first one to want to be eating them when they're done. She called them churro balls. Churro balls, yep. So we use the same tip that we use for the cream puffs, and so they end up looking kind of like little tater tots, but way better than tater tots. So they're really, really good. All right, I have a little mixture here that's Parmesan cheese. It's some black pepper. I have a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder, things that we had here. And like I said, if I was making this at home, I would add a little bit of fresh rosemary, fresh thyme. If you want to add, some like cooked chopped bacon, that's delicious. We do that in class a lot of the times, and so good. But it's great. Just the vegetarian version is really good. But you can add pretty much any kind of cheese that you can grate. So this is just Parmesan cheese. So any cheese that you can grate would be fine in here, not something like brie or, like super soft cheese. So it would need to be something that you can grate. And then any herbs, they can be fresh or dry. That would absolutely be fine. And this is truly just to taste. If I had a little bit of cayenne pepper here, I would have added like a little pinch of that, because like a little tiny bit of heat in here would be just delicious. All right, there we go. I'm just mixing till I see, luckily I have the pepper in here so I can tell whether it's evenly mixed in here. And now I'm going to use my same bag. So I'm going to use the one with the round tip. Why wash another bag and tip if you don't have to, right? So just make that collar again and take your dough, put it in. This time I'm taking all the rest. There we go. All right. I have to do the same thing and secure the corners. I might need another pan for this, or I'll do it later, but because this is quite a bit of dough that's still available. Okay, so with this, I'm going to be straight up and down. And I want to have my tip fairly close. Remember, these are just going to be small, little bite size. So I'm going to squeeze and then turn. Squeeze and turn. And these can go really close together. Notice there's really just about a finger apart on them. And that's because they really puff up more than spread. Squeeze and turn. And see, every once in a while, or a lot of times, you end up with that big peak on it. I'm gonna do the same thing with the water like I did before, and I'm just gonna make sure that I tap all these down. So I'm just gonna keep going with this, and I would just keep going and filling in my whole pan. So just little ones. You could make them as bigger ones. So if you wanted to make them into like cream puffs and make larger ones, that would be fine. You would just need to bake them just a little bit longer, and but that would be delicious, because those you could use if you wanted to use them and use them with like a chicken salad or crab salad or something inside them. That would be a perfect little almost like sandwich bun that you could make with them. All right. I'm gonna say this is coming home with me, and so that will be our little appetizer before dinner. These will end up popping in the oven here, but you're not gonna need to wait. On our instruction sheet on our website, it has all of the details for how long and temperatures for baking them and for doing that, and yeah, put that to the side. And so the things that you can do with it. So I want to show you how to fill and talk about filling. Let me grab some stuff here. I have some filling already made and ready to go. And so my favorite filling is like a combination of ingredients that we sell here. So there's two things. This is Bavarian cream, so it's kind of like a vanilla pudding, but it's a little bit lighter than a vanilla pudding. And Pastry Pride. Pastry Pride is a whipped topping. You can use this for icing cakes. You can use it for fillings on cakes. You use it for lots of different things. What we do is we take this, and just like whipped cream, put it into the mixer. Use your whip attachment this time, and you want to whip it till it's almost 3 times the volume. So just basically like whipped cream. You want to be looking for those nice soft peaks with it. And then add your Bavarian cream in, and the ratio is 1 of these. So this is a quart, it's 2 pounds to 2 pounds of the Bavarian cream. So equal amounts of it by weight. And once you add the Bavarian cream, whip it just a little bit again, and that will make it so that it all comes together and it's delicious. So that is a great filling for cakes. You can use it for so many different things. I love it with the cream puffs and eclairs. It's just a really nice, light kind of filling for it. If you wanted to use just Bavarian cream, we have some Bavarian cream recipes right on our website. Or if you want to use just like whipped cream, you could do that. So it's anywhere in between, to be able to have that. I like having the whipped topping along with the Bavarian cream, because this is now shelf stable. These are 2 items that do not have to stay refrigerated. If you use a regular whipped cream, then that would need to stay refrigerated while you're figuring out when you're going to eat them.
Eat them fast.
Eat them fast. All right. So let me show you filling them. So for the eclairs, what I like to do is to open it up, because if you try to just put the tip in and fill it, what's going to end up happening, it's not going to fill from both ends, so it's just not going to be as nice. So I'm just going to slice the top off here. There we go. And look how nice and airy they are. So you can see that it has all of those holes in there. All right, this is my filling. And this is so surprising when you pick up this bag. It looks like a bag of buttercream, but this is like light as a feather. So it's super light with it. So now I'm just gonna go back and forth. I'm just gonna zigzag to fill this in, and then put the top back on. If you wanted to melt a little chocolate, if you wanted to put some powdered sugar on here, you could definitely do that, or just eat it just like this. So take your eclairs, Just slice the top off. There we go, nice and light. Zigzag to fill it in. And like I was saying, if you want to do like a Google search for eclairs in like Paris or New Orleans, you can come up with their menus. They have so many different fillings, so many different flavors. It's just incredible the things that you can make with it. For the cream puffs, what I like to do is take my knife and go into the side. There are some people that like to fill from the bottom. I'm not a bottom filler. I don't like to fill from the bottom because once I fill it this way, I can kind of see what the filling is. So I'm just gonna fill it. It'll get heavier in your hands, and see how you can see that little bit of filling. So you know whether it's chocolate or whether it's vanilla. You get an idea for what the filling is. Sometimes there's already almost like a little area that should be where you fill it from. So that's where I try to go with this. Clean off my tip just a little bit there. Stick it in, squeeze, fill it, and then as you feel it kind of getting heavier in your hand and you start seeing it come out, that's when you know that it's all the way full. So then when you cut this, you can see that you have the filling all the way in. So that's what you're looking for. You want one?
Sure.
All right. So I'm gonna lift this up. We'll talk about a few other things and then go from there. So I want to talk about Gougeres. So when the Gougeres bake, that's when you have the little bite-sized morsels that are just so delicious. So these are the ones that I baked earlier. Can't wait to bake these later, and so we're gonna have lots of Gougeres. And if you were here, I would share with you. So thank you so much for joining us and being here for Pâte Choux. And hopefully I kind of demystified it. It's not something that's difficult to do, very easy, and you can make so many things with it. And so that's the really fun part. I do want to let you guys know that I am so excited. At 3 o'clock today, we're actually doing a virtual meeting with our staff. I'm so excited to see everyone and to hear how everyone's doing. This has been so hard, not seeing everyone. It's just such a different place, when I love Randy, but it's so different when it's just the two of us here versus having everyone here, and including all of you and the people that come to class and the people that come and shop in the store. So we can't wait for that to get back to normal. If you are wanting to shop for anything, you can email us. It's mail@makeitsweet.com, and that will come right to us. We'll go ahead and we'll run around and gather any of the things that you need. If you want to just call us and place an order, that's fine too. So the times that we're here for you to call and to have a live person to talk to, it would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. And that would be the same time for pickups and being able to do that. So tomorrow is going to be our gravity defying cake. And so I have some M&Ms that we're going to put on there and do some fun things with. There's so many different options, and I'll talk about that, whether it's Fruit Loops or M&Ms or different things that you could do with this whole design. So that will be a fun one. We're going to be showing how to work with fondant, talk through all of that, and then show you the gravity defying part of it. And then from there, then on Thursday is going to be cookies. Thursday is cookies, and then Friday is cupcakes, or it might be the other way around. Look on our website and you'd be able to know what we're going to be doing. I'm going to have to challenge myself to figure out some different designs. This time I am going to use some tips, because I think that, probably a lot of you cakers out there have a bunch of tips, or if you don't, you know, you'd be able to get some at this point. So I am going to use some tips and things as we go, not just the tipless bags and working with the bare bones. So we'll be doing some different designs and things as we get to Thursday and Friday. And then next week later this week, we're going to publish our schedule for next week. I don't think it's going to be every day for classes, but it might be, because I really like doing this. You know, I start every class the same way and always say that this is my favorite thing, like teaching is my favorite thing that I get to do. And so for me, this has been great to be able to still feel like I'm staying connected with people and looking back and seeing the comments and things, and staying connected with a lot of the customers. So we love having you here and watching the class, and I can't wait to see what you guys make with Pâte Choux. So post pictures after you're done, because I also say that in class, that one of my favorite things is knowing that people actually use what they learn. So post pictures. Hopefully you had ravioli last night. I did. If you didn't, look back at the pasta one from yesterday, because it was really good, and the ravioli was delicious. So looking forward to seeing you guys again soon, and or seeing you online. All right, take care. Have a good afternoon. Bye.